Okay, I think it's becoming very apparent that where there was once a mining town, there's now some spooky shit. We first explored this with Bodie in the Sierra Nevada of California in one of our very first episodes. We revisited this just this year with St. Elmo in Colorado. This time, though, we'll be exploring a ghost town in Montana, known for its remote location, excellent preservation, and perhaps more known for its haunting activity. I'm Nikki, and this is Tales of Two Cities.
Hello?
Welcome.
This is Tales of the Two Cities.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Welcome back to our Halloween marathon of minis. We begin in 1862, in the southwest corner of what would become the state of Montana, known at the time as the Idaho Territory. The location struck big when gold was discovered by John White on Grasshopper Creek on July 28th, with other members of his party, the Pikes Peakers. News spread quickly, and prospectors and businessmen flooded the area. A town was established and named Bannack after the local indigenous populations, though, as often happens, the Bannack Indians spelled it with an O, O-C-K, but Washington goofed up and spelled it with an A, A-C-K, as it remains today. In the beginning, the town was mostly composed of tents, caves, dugouts, huts, shanties, and wagons, though the gold in Bannack was unlike any other, as it was 99 to 99.5% pure. It soon became known as the El Dorado of the North. By November, just 3 months after the discovery by the Pikes Peakers, more than 400 prospectors called Bannack home. But it wasn't only miners who rushed to Bannack. Many Civil War deserters, outlaws, and businessmen also flooded the new town in hopes of profiting from the many newcomers. Dr. Erasmus Darwin Leavitt, a physician born in New Hampshire, was among the founders of Bannack. He had left his practice to pursue gold mining in Montana. When he arrived in 1862, he found quickly that he would have to balance erratic mining with the lucrative practice of medicine. Joaquin Miller explained, quote, "Though some success crowned his labors, he soon found that he had more reputation as a physician than as a miner, and that there was a greater profit in allowing someone else to wield his pick and shovel while he attended to his profession." Though mining was alluring for many less educated men than Leavitt, at its peak, Bannack was home to more than 10,000. The town was extremely remote, accessible only by the Montana Trail. But it didn't stop the people of Bannack from creating a bustling city, with 3 hotels, 3 bakeries, 3 blacksmith shops, 2 stables, 2 meat markets, a restaurant, a brewery, a billiard hall, a Masonic lodge, a schoolhouse, churches, and of course, as with many mining towns, 4 saloons. Most buildings were constructed of logs, but had some decorative false fronts, as was custom at the time. The town was mostly men, but there were some saloon girls and women of the night. Very few wives came to the town, but for those who did, town dances were their only relief from household duties. Montana gets cold, like really cold. So early settlers who came by wagon, stagecoach, horseback, steamboat, and some by foot weren't anticipating the harshness of a Montana winter and were ill-prepared and without supplies. But with some tenacity and the development of the town, it continued to thrive. Gold was soon discovered in nearby Virginia City in 1863, and many prospectors picked up and left Bannack in the hopes of striking it big. As any mining town, there was a fair share of drama due to the lawlessness and unpredictability of both work and residents. It was not uncommon for the roads in and out of town, and in many other mining towns, to be patrolled by road agents. Murder was a frequent occurrence. It was the Wild West, of course. Bannack Sheriff Henry Plummer was once accused of leading a ruthless band of road agents that were reportedly responsible for over 100 murders in Virginia City and Bannack goldfields, as well as the trails to Salt Lake City. Plummer arrived in Bannack in 1863 and was elected sheriff just 3 months later. He reported his desire to bring some peace to the lawless town. He had been sheriff for only 7 months before it was revealed that he was in fact the leader of his own gang called the Innocents. Only 8 deaths were documented, but it doesn't discount the accusations. He's believed to have been the leader of the largest group of road agents, with more than 100 men in their group of bandits. It was believed that Plummer would await information about men traveling with gold and pass it on to his gang. They would kill the man and take his gold. When the settlement in Virginia City grew, the roads between Bannack and Virginia City became extremely hazardous, as road agents targeted travelers between the two towns. Of course, where miners and travelers saw trouble, Sheriff Plummer saw opportunity. Soon, his operation extended to Virginia City, and when he was appointed U.S. Deputy Marshal for the region in August of 1893, violent holdups became commonplace. Though not in written record, it was believed more than 100 men were murdered in 1863 alone. As more people began to settle west, President Abraham Lincoln appointed Sidney Egerton a Chief Justice of the territory. Egerton brought his wife, Mary, and their 4 children to Bannack in September of 1863. Soon, his niece arrived and began working as Bannack's teacher, using his living room as a schoolroom with 12 students in attendance. The new leadership of Egerton and the swing toward a more family-oriented life teased the people of Bannack. Soon, they demanded a safer home and less violence. Men from Bannack, Virginia City, and nearby Nevada City organized a secret vigilante organization, the Montana Vigilantes. These masked men began to visit suspected outlaws in the middle of the night to issue warnings. They also began to tack up posters with skulls and crossbones, and the mystic numbers 3777, which some have said reference the measurements of a grave, 3 feet wide, 7 feet long, and 77 inches deep. While it was never confirmed, Montana State Highway Patrol wear these numbers on their shoulders today. The vigilantes won the battle. They began to hang men who had been found to be involved in the gang. One man, Erastus Red Yeager, pointed, just as he was about to be hanged, to Sheriff Plummer and identified him as the leader of their gang. All hell broke loose. Residents were divided on the matter. Though after a long night of drinking at a local saloon, the vigilantes decided that he was guilty. Plummer and 2 of his deputies, Buck Stinson and Ned Ray, were hanged, without trials in Bannack on January 10, 1864. Between 50 and 70 men gathered to watch the men be hanged. Buck and Ned were hung first. Legend says that Plummer was next, but he pled with the men. He promised to tell them where $100,000 of gold was buried if they would let him live. They ignored his pleas and slowly pulled the noose tighter and hoisted him up by his neck. Plummer's known associates were lynched, while a lucky few were simply banished with the threat of death should they return to Bannack. In total, 24 individuals were accused, informally, and hung by the Vigilance Committee of Bannack and Virginia City. The original gallows remained standing behind the old saloon. Though the violence didn't cease, even after Plummer's execution and the hanging of his co-conspirators, robberies continued. Stage robberies began to show more evidence of organized crime. More robbers were holding people up, more information was being passed on. Some have suggested that the vigilantes were the true gang. The entire story of Plummer and the innocents was fabricated to cover up their own elaborate crime ring. In May of 1864, Egerton decided there were too many people in the area and that they needed a new territory. He convinced the president, and on May 26, 1864, Egerton was named the governor of the first territorial capital. Egerton, as promised, brought a more family-friendly vibe. Within no time, there were more school-aged children. Egerton's living room could no longer accommodate class sizes, and a schoolhouse was built, Bannack's first. Even with Egerton pushing for a more family-friendly community, violence continued in the mining districts. Though in March of 1867, miners had grown tired and issued a warning that if the vigilantes hung any more people, law-abiding citizens would retaliate 5-1. Lynchings continued, but at a much slower rate, and within 3 years, there was no more easy mining. Bannack shrank to just a few hundred people by the 1870s. Even despite a shrinking population, a Masonic lodge was built, and the Beaverhead County Courthouse that remains in Bannack today. A Methodist church was built in 1881, and when the first electric dredge was invented in 1895, 5 were working on Grasshopper Creek for the next 10 years. But these dredging operations began to destroy many buildings. From the founding of the town until the 1930s, mining continued in Bannack, though with a constant fluctuation in population. Businesses and social communities had left Bannack, and very few people remained. In the 1940s, so few students remained that the school was forced to close. Bannack was a ghost town. In 1954, the town was purchased by preservationists and donated to the state, with the stipulation that it must remain a ghost town. It was made a state park on August 15, 1954. Today, 60 historic log, brick, and frame structures remain in Bannack. They're well preserved and most can be explored. It's now a historic district and was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1961. Bannack State Park manages the town. Visitors today frequently cite many paranormal experiences. The ghost of Henry Plummer is said to wander the streets, looking for vengeance against the men who killed him, and to clear his name. The Hotel Meade, originally a courthouse, is also said to be haunted. Cold spots are frequently reported. The apparition of a teenage girl is seen. Sounds of children sobbing are not uncommon. The apparition is believed to be Dorothy Dunn, who drowned in a dredge pond along the creek. Shortly after her death, she appeared to her best friend, who was with her at the time of her death. Since then, many others have reported seeing her on the second story of the hotel, in a long blue dress. Most reports come from children. One even said that she was trying to talk to them, but no sound came from her mouth. Though it's not just Dorothy, other women are also reported to be seen walking the streets in their best dresses, before disappearing. It's as if they're walking through our world and into another. Perhaps this desolate and seemingly unpopulated town is still bustling with prospectors, outlaws, and saloon girls, silently, breathlessly, and unseen to the living human eye, except for brief moments when the fabric of our world enmeshes with theirs. Thanks for listening. We appreciate each of you. There's more to come in our annual Halloween Marathon of Minis. 8 episodes in October. Stay tuned. We love hearing from you, so hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or email us at talesofTwoCitiesPodcast@gmail.com. That's talesofThe2CitiesPodcast@gmail.com. And please rate, review, and subscribe on the listening platform of your choice. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Spotify. We're a bi-weekly podcast, but if you just can't wait for the next episode, head over to our Patreon and pledge for mini episodes and bonus content. And never forget that we have merch. Head to TeePublic and check out some of the badass sales on our merch. Again, we appreciate each of you. Thanks for listening. Until next time.